I'm Bailey from the Indignants, and we're sitting here in Covent Garden Market with Harry Fear, who is a journalist and documentary maker from Gaza. So I guess just to start off, why don't you just tell us a little bit about your talk tonight?
I was in Gaza during the recent 8-day war, and so basically what I'm trying to do actually is educate, make people feel what happened, inspire them to go to Gaza, and try and activate people to feel like they should do something to campaign about what's happened. So these are the main reasons actually. But I was invited to come and speak in London. Obviously not the London I'm used to because I'm British, but yeah, so this is my pleasure. I mean, it's nice. Throughout Canada and Europe, the audiences have been amazing in terms of quantity and quality, diverse in age, religion, socioeconomic status and everything. So it's been a real amazing opportunity to reach out to people who otherwise didn't know anything about the conflict, actually, the Israel-Palestine situation. So it's been really amazing. Yeah.
You mentioned the recent attack on Gaza, Operation Pillar of Cloud, it's been called. Describe your experience with that, because you were a witness to it.
It lasted 7 days and 3 hours. Palestinians consider that it was a massacre and it was state terrorism. It was launched aggressively and not for self-defensive purposes. Most of those Palestinians killed were civilian. More than 80% of those injured, of which there were about 2,000, were women and children. 59 children were killed during the war. About 10 women were killed, including pregnant women, young pregnant women. And basically, having been there, the point is that nowhere was safe, that the Palestinians don't have bomb shelters, so they seek refuge in their home. And it's terrifying to be in a war zone and to not be able to help yourself or help your friends and protect yourself. And some friends of mine, for example, were subjected to, for example, up to 6 hours of continuous aerial bombardment in their hometown. What that means is that every minute your home is shaking at night, so you can't sleep for 6 hours, with your baby brother not being able to sleep, your baby sister needing cradling and crying for 6 hours at night. So it's not exactly a pleasant experience. And despite all of this pain and suffering and trauma, and most Palestinians are traumatized by what's happened, they manage to deal with it extraordinarily mentally resiliently, actually. But despite all of this, they are actually hopeful that this conflict will be resolved. They will get their self-determination and their rights back.
So you're living in Gaza. What kind of community initiatives are you involved with there?
Well, I mean, I have a home in Gaza in the sense that I have a place where I live, but I don't spend most of my time yet there, but it's almost most of my time, and this year it probably will be, actually. I mean, in Gaza, there are amazing programs for campaigners and internationals and domestic campaigners. But one thing to say, actually, is that the Gaza Strip is pretty much starved in comparison to the West Bank of Palestine of international solidarity visitors. And so this means that basically there are not as many internationals making solidarity projects there as you would like. There are amazing programs of non-violent resistance, regular demonstrations and etc. But generally the Western media ignores them because it ignores Palestinian non-violent resistance to such a large extent, and it has done for decades. But there are some amazing initiatives there to promote media awareness, social media campaigns from Gaza. For example, recently during the 8-day war, Palestinians won the social media battle, and particularly diasporic Palestinians in, for example, Canada, and those actually in Gaza as well. And so that's a social media and strategic victory. So these are some of the campaigns. At the same time, me myself, when I go back to Gaza in a few weeks' time, I'm going to be starting some strategic projects to try and improve the media situation in a more long-term way as well. So there are lots of campaigns actually, but we need a hell of a lot more, basically.
Because of how, at least from my experience, and I know a lot of other people's experience, because of how the mainstream media portrays this conflict, a lot of people in Canada are ignorant to the truth about the situation, and we're told about how the Palestinians are the ones in the wrong, and we should be supporting Israel. And when you speak out against Israel around here, you're pretty much asking for an attack from someone, right? Or you're asking to be silenced. Like, for example, Western University is really bad for that, with silencing SPHR and anything to do with Palestine, and it's going to be a challenge, basically. So I'm just curious as to how you have combated this, and as you spread this truth, and what advice you have for people who are also trying to spread that truth and be outspoken about it.
The first most important thing is that we must not be scared about opposition and fierce criticism and etc. Why? Because the Palestinians have history and the truth and facts on their side. And so we should speak with confidence when we defend the Palestinian narrative of their plight and their history. So never be shied away from it, shying away from the situation and etc. And the second is to be smart, because the supporters of Israel are smart, but they're very well organized and they're very well funded. So there are packages which are handed out, PDF documents even online, articles explaining how to attack supporters of the Palestinians' rights. So if that's how well organized Israeli supporters are, we have to be, if not the same, comparably or relatively close to that level of sophistication. So we have to know what the basic arguments are and combat them. And me myself, generally speaking, when I receive the occasional negative, not negative actually, I would say adversarial or sometimes aggressive comment or opinion, usually I kind of act with confidence in trying to slice their argument up, and basically it usually works. And sometimes it works to such an extent that people end up almost being really having their worldview changed. So we really have to spend time knowing the history and knowing the facts and spending that intellectual effort actually. And it's not an intellectual, it's not one the fight, the struggle for Palestinian rights and self-determination is not an intellectual fight, but we have to have intellectual energy and know that the history of what happened in 1947, 1948, what happened with the Balfour Declaration, the Zionist Federation, etc. And it's all on the historical record, and there are amazing books. You just have to, one just has to go and read them and know some of the basic facts. And actually, there's an amazing website which I often refer people to, which is really, I think, one of a kind, ifamericans.knew.org, and it's basically just the bar graphs of how many children have been killed on either side, how many homes have been destroyed, and etc. The numbers speak for themselves. People are not stupid. When they see the basic facts and the numbers, and if we can learn them, we should. This is compelling. I mean, you can't talk against, a kill ratio of 1 Israeli to 100 Palestinians. Yeah. People will not accept this.
What would you say is the most important thing that people need to know about this conflict, whether we're outspoken supporters of the Palestinians or, completely oblivious to everything?
Well, that the Palestinians have international law on their side. Most people in the world agree with the law. Israel doesn't agree with the law. It's explicit about refusing to accept the law, while the Palestinians decry that and cry for the world to enforce the law on Israel. And it is like that. It is black and white, basically like that. That 99.99% of the international legal breaches are by Israel, the state of Israel, with the 4th greatest military in the world. People have to remember that the law is no small weapon. The history of the Israel-Palestine situation is no small weapon. The fact that there was an ethnic cleansing process which started 65 years ago, that's no small problem. And another really third and important thing is that the Palestinians are not giving up, and they want people to help them get their rights back. They haven't given in to this, and this is really important. So I guess these are some of the most important things.
How can people hear, people who maybe can't go on like the boat to Gaza or stuff? How can people hear? How can we support our Palestinian sisters and brothers?
I think that the most important thing to say is that of those people who do the things like you said, like going on the boats or go to Gaza or something. I mean, obviously not all sympathizers with the Palestinians in Canada can just go to Gaza, of course. But the people that do go to Gaza are no different from those that don't but wish they could. They're just ordinary people who, for whatever circumstances, can go for financial or timetable reasons. Actually, this is really important. And they're not particularly, heroic going in comparison to the Palestinians who have survived the conflict for 65 years. These are some really important things. But I think there are 4 really important things which, for example, Canadians can do to help the Palestinian brothers and sisters. The first is, if possible, go, because it makes a massive difference to be an eyewitness and to make physical solidarity connections with human beings who are being affected by this, even if possible on both sides of the wall, in Palestine and in Israel as well. This makes a big difference. Most people can't do this, I know. The second thing is to not forget about conventional politics, to remember to vote not for the crazies, so that you don't continue, perpetuate the mainstream political treatment of Israel, which is great job in Gaza. This is not ideal, yeah? So voting not for these strange people would be a really good idea. And generally doing some mainstream political campaigning as well, with petitions and etc., is really important. Making the Israel-Palestine situation an election platform issue, and if not on the TV screens with the debates, if you have debates in Canada, but at least personally, so that you, your family, your extended family, your colleagues inside your university or whatever, doesn't vote for that candidate because of his position, or he won't say what his position is, or he's sort of sitting on the fence or something like this. Get these people out. The third is an actual boycott, so we're not voting with our dollars anymore for the companies that are letting this happen. So there are very strong targeted campaigns against particular companies, like, for example, Coca-Cola, which of course people are going to be like, well, I like my Coke. Well, it's like, well, yeah, great job, but just take something else, because actually it's not as important that you like your brand, and etc., etc., etc. So there are some targeted campaigns on companies. Coca-Cola is the tip of the iceberg. People can Google BDS, obviously, boycott, divestment, sanctions. BDS. This third thing about the BDS is a personal moral responsibility thing, to get the blood off one's hands, from stop spending this money in this way, and etc. The fourth is to, I think this is the most important, is to even spend 1 minute per day continuing to raise awareness about the Palestinian plight in Gaza and etc. In other areas as well. And that can be done actually from sitting in a chair with a laptop on Facebook these days. It makes a big difference, actually. People sometimes say, armchair activism. Well, this should be taken seriously, because actually this is one of the most powerful forms of activism today. And it's something which anyone can do, actually. You just need a Facebook account.
Yeah.
So I think that, these sorts of things, like these 4 points, in this day and age, really mean that we could solve the conflict basically overnight if enough people actually did something for 5 minutes each day. I really believe that, and I hope and I think, looking at the current trajectory, that the conflict will be solved, the injustice will be resolved in a just and sustainable way in our lifetime, in our lifetime. I believe this, actually.
I hope so.
Yeah, I hope so too.
Yeah. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us today.
Thanks a lot.
No problem.